A very good morning, dear students. Welcome back to the online classes. So in today's class, I am going to continue with the model question paper 1 questions discussion. So let us start with the part C. So 3 marks questions. So the first question goes like this. Write any 3 characteristics of impact printers. So already you have known about the printers types. So in printers we are having 2 types of printers. So one is impact printer, another one is non-impact printer. So here they have asked you have to write the characteristic of impact printers. So characteristics here in the sense you have to write the feature of that impact printers. Okay. So here the first point is there is a physical contact with the paper. Okay. So there is a physical contact with the paper, and due to the low cost they are useful for larger number of papers to be printed at a time. So that is, it has to be used for printing the bulk sheets. Okay. So because of this physical contact with the paper, there is a striking mechanism or striking activities involved in these impact printers. For example, dot matrix printers, line printers. So if you have seen those types of printers, so there will be a physical contact with the paper, and also there will be a striking of pins against the paper. So therefore there will be a sound is coming out of those printers. Okay. But these printers can produce larger number of papers to be printed. That is bulk printing. For bulk printing we can use these types of impact printers. Okay. So because of that striking mechanism, these printers are very noisy. Okay. Noisy in the sense they are going to produce more sound. So next, these printers are very slow in printing process. So these printers will produces the printout at a less speed. Okay. So these are the main 3 characteristics of impact printers. Even you can write at what time, at how many resolutions these printers can print, and then these printers are costlier or not, that also you can write. Okay. So the first main point here you have to write is there is a striking mechanism of the pins against the paper is there, and because of the striking mechanism these printers are very noisy. So these printers produces the printout at the slower rate, and these printers has a physical contact with the paper. So it can be used for larger bulk printing process. Okay. So these are the characteristics of impact printers. So I hope you all understood the answer for this impact printers. So next question is, what is the base of hexadecimal number system, and convert the given number. So that is one hexadecimal number they have given. So what is that? FAD into its binary equivalent. So in number systems we are having decimal number systems, octal number system, hexadecimal number systems, and binary number systems. So all the number systems will have the base. So for binary number system the base is 2. For octal number system the base is 8. For hexadecimal number system the base is 16. For decimal number system the base is 10. Okay. So here they have asked what is the base of hexadecimal number system. So the base of hexadecimal number system is 16. Okay. So for this there will be a 1 mark, and for the conversion there will be a rest of the marks. So that is 2 marks for conversion there will be. Okay. So what is the base of hexadecimal number system? The base of hexadecimal number system is 16. Okay. So next is you have to convert the given number into its binary equivalent. So what is the number they have given? FAD. So as soon as you see this FAD number, so in your mind it should come like that. It is an hexadecimal number. So hexadecimal number ranges from 0 to 9 and A to F. So 0 to 9 in the sense it is an hexadecimal number, and along with that A to F is also will be there. So what is the number they have given? FAD. So FAD will have its equivalent binary number, 4-bit binary number will be there. So first what you should write is, you should write the chart for that. So one side you have to write the hexadecimal number, another side you have to write the equivalent binary number. Okay, so here you can see for 0 what is its equivalent binary number? 4 zeros. Same wise for 1, 3 zeros and 1 will be there. For 2, double zeros and 1 0 will be there. So same like for F, all the ones will be there. For A 1 0 1 0 will be there. For D 1 1 0 1 is the equivalent binary number. Okay, so for F all the 4 ones, for A 1 0 1 0, for D 1 1 0 1. Okay, so after writing its equivalent binary numbers, you have to write in a one single line without any space. So that gives the conversion for hexadecimal number to its base 2. Okay, so this is the answer you have to write. So what you should write is, first you have to write the equivalent chart for hexadecimal number and a binary number. Equivalent chart you have to write, and by seeing at the question FAD, what you should write for F, what is the equivalent number, for A, what is the equivalent number, and for D, what is the equivalent number, you have to note down first. And what are the equivalent numbers is there for the hexadecimal number, you have to write in a single line. So that gives the answer for conversion from hexadecimal number to binary number. Okay, so this is the second question. So next question is, write a note on multi-programming operating system. So here you have to make a points, write the points on the concept called as multi-programming operating system. So here there are many points. The first point is, the system can run 2 or more programs concurrently is called as multi-programming operating system. So what does it mean? Multi-programming operating system means what? Here you can run 2 or more programs. So more than one program if you are running at the same time, so then it is called as multi-programming operating system. Okay. Essentially 2 or more programs are stored concurrently in primary storage, and the CPU moves from one program to another, executing each program partially. So here both the programs will be in the main memory, and the main memory, the programs which is stored in the main memory will make a move for the CPU, and there it will execute partially. After executing one program, the next program will go and it will be executed by the CPU. Okay. So next point is, multi-programming operating system monitors the state of all active programs and system resources using memory management process to ensure that CPU is never idle unless there are no jobs. So using this multi-programming operating system, what this operating system monitors in the sense what it will look after is, so it will actually, it will not make the CPU to be in idle unless and until there is no jobs by the input system. If it is not having any job, until that time CPU will not be idle. CPU will be allocating the resources by using memory management programs. So by using memory management programs, the CPU will be always busy in scheduling the jobs. So if it is not having any jobs, then the CPU will be idle, or else the CPU will be never idle. Okay. So this is done by multi-programming operating system. So multi-programming operating system means what? Multi means what? Many. Programming operating system means there are many many programs or many tasks is done at a time. So such systems are called as multi-programming operating system. Okay, so here two or more programs are stored in the primary storage, and then the CPU moves from one program to another. Okay, executing each program partially. So if multi-programming operating system monitors all the state of active programs, so how it will monitor? By using memory management programs. So by using memory management programs, it will ensure that the CPU is never idle. Okay, until and unless the programs, there is no job, there is no programs. So until unless that time, the CPU will be busy in scheduling all the programs. Okay. So these are the key points. This is the answer you have to write for note on multi-programming operating system. So next what you have to write, next question is, what is nested if statement? Write the syntax. So what is nested if statement? A statement in which one if statement is included within another if statement is called as nested if statement. So one if statement is present within another if statement. So if you are having two if statements, and in that one is outer if statement, another one is inner if statement, so then it is called as, then that such statement is called as nested if statement. Okay. So what is its syntax? So syntax is, see, if you should have test conditions more than one, because here it is a nested if statement. So if test condition 1, so next if condition, test condition 2. So what is here? So here the statement 1 has to be executed if the test condition 2 is true. So that is, if test condition 2 is satisfying, so then statement 1 is executed, or else statement 2 will be executed. So next, for the statement 1 condition, if the statement 1 condition is false, what it has to execute? It has to check for the next test condition 3. So if the test condition 3 is true, then statement 3 will execute, or else statement 4 will execute. So if test condition is true, what it is checking? So it is checking for test condition 2. So if test condition 2 is true, statement 1 will be executed. If test condition false, test condition 2 is false, then statement 2 will be executed. So this is the syntax for nested if statement. So here you have to know that, so test condition 1 is true means test condition 2 will execute. So if test condition 2 is false, so then test condition 3 is executed. Okay. So if test condition 3 is true, then test condition statement 3 is executed. If test condition 3 is false, so then test condition statement 4 is executed. So this is the nested if statement. So here you can see one if statement is present within the another if statement, so only it is called as nested if statement. Okay. So next question, what is precedence of operators in C++ and evaluate one expression they have given. P is equals to 10 plus 5 into 37 modulus 5 minus 2. So here precedence of operator, the order in which different types of operators are evaluated in an expression is called as precedence of operators. So order, so the way or the numbering from where it will execute is called as order of precedence of operators. So the order in which different types of operators are evaluated in an expression is called as precedence of operators. For example, see here, so this is the expression you are having. So here always you should execute bracket first. So then you should execute modulus, division, multiplication, then plus, then minus. So like this order in which you are evaluating an expression is called as precedence of operators. Okay. So next is they have given one expression. So what is the expression? P is equals to 10 plus 5 into 37 modulo 5 minus 2. So here by using division what you are going to get the answer, by using modulus what you are going to get the answer. So whenever you divide 37 by 5, so what is the answer you are going to get? So like this you are going to do, right? So here 7 is there, right? So this you have to consider for division, and this remainder is there, right? So this you have to consider for modulus operator. Okay, modulus operation you have to consider this remainder. So now first what you have to evaluate? First you have to evaluate what is the expression present within the bracket. So within this bracket you are having 37 modulo 5. So if you do that you will get the remainder as 2. So next you have to perform multiplication. So 5 2s are 10. So next you have to perform addition. 10 plus 10, 20, minus 2 is there. So 18 is the answer for this. So this is the evaluation of an expression. P is equals to 10 plus 5 into 37 modulo 5 minus 2. So next question is, what are modifiers? Mention the different modifiers. So modifiers is used to alter the meaning of base data type. So modifiers means what? It will modify the meaning of the base data type. So base data type is what? The simple data types like integer, float, double, character is there, right? So their meaning will be changed by using these modifiers. So by using these modifiers you will alter the meaning of those base data types. So there are different modifiers: signed, unsigned, long, short. Okay. So these are the 4 different modifiers. So if you are giving signed as a prefix for int, so then it is called as signed int. So if you are giving unsigned as a modifier, so then it will be called as unsigned modifiers. If you are giving long as a modifier, so then it is called as long int. So if you are giving short as a modifier, short int will be given as the answer. Okay. So next question is, define the one-dimensional array. So you already know what do you mean by an array. Array is what? It is an homogeneous collection of elements. So it will be having same name and it will be under the same data type. So one-dimensional array means it is a collection of elements of same data type and it is identified by only one subscript. So what is its syntax? Data type, array name. In the square bracket you have to mention the size. So one dimensional array means what? It is a collection of elements of same data type in which each element is identified by only one subscript. So syntax here is data type, array name, size. Okay. So what is a data type? So data type means what? The basic simple data types like integer, character or float. For declaring arrays you have to use, majorly we use integer as a data type. And here array name is what? The name of the array which we are going to give in the programs. Size means what? Number of elements. How many elements are there in the particular array are represented by using this size. Okay. So here you can see an example. Int space a of, in square bracket you are going to write the 10. So here int is what? Int is and data type. A is what? It is an array name. 10 is what? Number of elements. Okay. So like this you can give the one dimensional array definition and syntax with example. So next we will see the rules for creating an identifiers. So write the rules for creating an identifiers. So there are many rules. So first rule is what? Always an identifiers must consist of letters, digits and underscores. So identifier means what? The name given for the programming element. So there you should specify the letters, digits, numbers and underscores. The first character always must be an alphabet or an underscore. So in identifiers, always the first character must be what? An identifier. In identifiers, always it must be an alphabet or an underscore. Next, an identifier may be a length up to 32 characters. Both uppercase and lowercase are permitted in identifiers. But C++ is a case sensitive. That means what? It will take smaller case letter as differently from uppercase letters. So special characters are not allowed. Identifiers must be a single word, that is there is no spaces between them. That means all the single words should be there and there should be no space. For example, if I write computer as an one identifier, there is a space right here, so that space should not be there. So identifier is what? It is a single word. And then special characters means what? At the rate, exclamatory mark, then negation symbol. So all these things should not be used while creating an identifiers. And then last point is what? Keywords should not be used. So keywords like what? Int, character, double, float. So all those keywords should be avoided while using the identifiers. Okay. So these are all the 3 marks questions from the model question paper 1. So what you have to write is, you have to note down all these questions and answers in the assignment book, and you need to submit at the end. Thank you all.